So we want to dominate Connecticut. We want everybody in Connecticut to, know Waypoint Spirits. And then from there, we'd like to branch out to the Mid-Atlantic and New England. And then from there, go nationwide.
Just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better.
Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. Today, I'm with Tony Tine of Waypoint Spirits. Tony, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Listen, it's my pleasure, Tony, but it's the Made in America podcast, so we always start off with the same two questions. What do you make, and why do you make it?
Oh, we make spirits, and because all the partners really love spirits. So it's pretty easy.
That is pretty easy. And it is awesome to have a passion for what you're doing because it really helps and inspires, I think, greatness.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, let's sort of start with what is Waypoint Spirits and how did you get there?
So Waypoint Spirits has a more lengthy duration of time than you might think. It was conceived back in 2015. 5 friends created Waypoint Spirits. And then back in 2019, I was trying to have like a small time distillery at my cigar store. And I knew how much effort there was in distilling. And I couldn't do that. I just wanted to have the spirits. And so I went out and I found these guys, Waypoint, out in Bloomfield. And so, they were going to make me a vodka, a gin, and a bourbon and a rum. And all of a sudden I got a phone call one day from my liquor attorney, and he's like, the guys aren't answering questions. And I said, okay, I'll call them. And they're like, unfortunately, we're probably not going to take your project on. We're probably going out of business, and would you like to buy us? And I was like shocked. And I was like, because that was so far from what I was thinking we were doing. And so I kind of thought about it over the weekend, and I talked to my brother Joe, and he seemed to show some interest. So I brought him down there, and it's kind of neat to see all the copper and silver, you know. So he was definitely interested. And as luck would have it, I always have a booth at the Durham Fair. And I bumped into a friend of mine. And he was allegedly a home distiller. And allegedly he would make some very good items for Christmas that he allegedly would hand out to people.
Right.
And so I had talked to him about it, and he was on board. And we approached a few other different people, and nobody else really was willing to take the jump. So we kind of really crunched some numbers, and we're like, if we have to, we could sell the equipment to try to get our money back. But we were all in on it to try and make some stuff. So 2019, we started the purchase agreement. By August 1st of 2020, it became ours. So yeah, smack dab during the pandemic.
Yeah. So as you're going through, well, you finished the story. I got like 17 questions, but go ahead.
So, August 1st came, and the 3 of us are, as you can tell by my jersey, big hockey fans. So, our colors are basically like the Whalers. Mm-hmm. And another thing that we share in common is we're all big Buffalo Trace bourbon fans. So, obviously we really enjoyed doing our R&D. And we changed everything. We didn't keep anything from the old Waypoint. And not for any particular reason, but there's certain things that we look for when we're creating a spirit. And one of the criteria is you have to be able to drink our spirit neat and enjoy it, or else we're not happy with the way it came out. So everything is meant to be enjoyed neat, so that when you mix it in a cocktail, the cocktail's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So for the first 12 months, I would say, we did nothing but R&D. So Eric, who's our head distiller, he would come out and just every Tuesday there would be all day samples. Try this, try that, try this, try that. And we'd tweak it. Well, I like the way this one, this one's nose, or I like the way this one tastes, but I don't like the nose. I like the way this one finished, but I don't like the way it starts. And so we did a lot of that until we had our core. And our core for last year was our vodka, our gin, and later in the year, our rum and our canned cocktails. So again, we really think that when you drink these neat, you're like, oh, wow, this is very good. So that, again, the cocktail becomes amazing.
That's really just a ton to ask about there. I love that concept about really focusing on drinking it neat, because, having been to some micro distillers, seems like they rely more heavily on putting it into a cocktail, and that, not calling anybody out, but they aren't really very drinkable neat, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like you've really taken an approach to go a different direction than that and focus on it needs to stand alone first.
Absolutely. Have you ever had something where, because we did a lot of sampling, have you ever had something where you maybe even just had like a shot of it and all of a sudden had like a headache?
Mm-hmm.
That's because of like the sugar content. And a lot of people throw a lot of stuff in there that doesn't need to be in there. And so again, we wanted everything to be on its own, no headaches, you can sip it. And the other thing is how we make it, even if you happen to overindulge, the next morning you're fine. You don't have that headache where you will with a lot of other stuff. And again, because of that sugar content.
That's interesting. So I'm going to back up. You mentioned a cigar shop?
Yes. So I went to Southern Connecticut State University in the mid-90s, and I had a project for business management that I had to do, which was creating a fictitious business plan. So I was on the football team, and there was a bunch of us who would smoke cigars after our game. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do it on a cigar store. And I got an A. And I was getting ready to graduate when a cousin of mine said, hey, I got a friend who opened up a cigar store in Canton and he needs a manager. I was like, wow, that's perfect. So I went and did that for about 6-8 months. And then I opened up and Smoke in Cromwell. And last year we celebrated our 25th anniversary.
Very nice. And so I guess the cigars and the bourbon or whatever was a nice match.
Natural pairing.
Yeah. And that's what sort of drove you to say, hey, it was kind of work with these guys, because you wanted them to make, it's called Up and Smoke?
It's called Up and Smoke. And I have my own freestanding building in Cromwell. And what I was trying to do is kind of have a quasi small farm type distillery. But again, I wasn't going to make my stuff. I was going to farm it out. And I had found the guys from Waypoint, and it seemed like it was going to be a natural fit. And then I didn't really understand that the inner circle, I guess, was falling apart.
The business was struggling.
Yeah.
So are you going to use Waypoint Spirits at Up and Smoke now?
So Up and Smoke has changed a little since the pandemic. So the lounge really isn't open anymore. But it's there. So, we would need a law change from the state allowing a cigar bar license. And if that happens, absolutely, there will be a Waypoint Spirits bar at Up and Smoke.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So that you mentioned the pandemic. Both of your businesses now seem to be a real challenge. I guess let me start with the very, very basic question, which is, what gave you the heart to go forward in August of 2020 to move on this deal when, I mean, that's like, I'm trying to remember back to that, but, you know, we're saying, you know, everything kind of shuts down in March. I mean, the summer was sort of looked like maybe it was going to lift, but then I think it was the first variant hit. I mean, it was just sort of right back in the mix. I would imagine that small distillery really relies on sort of, I don't know if they call it a tap room, but, you know, I would imagine you still sort of rely on that person to person sale there.
So to be honest with you, that was not our problem.
No?
No, because at that particular point in time, the license that we hold was not available. So there was no tap room.
Okay.
The old Waypoint Spirits was not allowed to have a tap room. They were only allowed to do a tour and a tasting only. What exists now as a beautiful tap room that you can get food and you can get cocktails was unavailable to them.
Oh, why is that?
There needed to be a law change. So we hold what's called a craft cafe license, which allows for food and cocktails.
And the craft cafe license
Was not available until the end of 2020.
Well, that's an interesting time for them
Yes.
to release that. Had that been a long time in the making?
So the original owners of Waypoint were pushing for that, but unfortunately they did not see it to fruition. I don't remember the exact month, but it was later in 2020 where that became legal. So again, it didn't hurt us at all because we were working on all of our formulas for all of our different spirits. So it didn't really matter. And I know that sounds funny, but we weren't in a place where that was going to bother us. We were too busy doing R&D.
So when you're thinking about going forward with this thing, what's sort of the high level business plan, or what are you like, where are you guys thinking, you know, you and Joe and Eric, where are you thinking you're going to be able to take this thing?
I mean, to be honest with you, we want to be in all 50 states. So we have this motto, crawl, walk, run. So we want to dominate Connecticut. We want everybody in Connecticut to, know Waypoint Spirits. And then from there, we'd like to branch out to the Mid-Atlantic and New England. And then from there, go nationwide.
And so what is it? I mean, look, this is a crowded market, right? I mean, if you go to the store, I have no idea the number of different vodkas, but it is not a small number.
No.
I don't as much know about sort of what the rum mix is, but I mean, there's at least a few, kind of really well-known, established sort of rum brands that I could think of. And then on the bourbon side, I mean, you mentioned Buffalo Trace. We could go down the list of sort of well-known bourbons and ryes. So what's the thought process from you guys on how to sort of make your way in a crowded market?
So again, going from the crawl, walk, run. So as far as Connecticut goes, we're a craft distiller, we're a local distiller, and our products are delicious. So those are the three main things that we focus on. And one thing you're going to get from us that you're not going to get from those places in Texas or Tennessee is, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I was in the back room bottling all day our vanilla vodka that's set to come out in February. And I guarantee you the people in Austin aren't, sitting bottling and packaging and getting it ready and putting it on a pallet and moving it around. I can guarantee you that. So I think it's key that the ownership is right smack dab in the middle of everything so that, we're looking going, oh, that's not right. Something's off. And we can pivot and change and rectify things immediately. So that's what I think kind of separates what we're trying to do as opposed to what's going on right now.
Do you think, I mean, I assume there's taste test competitions or whatever. sounds like the flavor, the standalone flavor of the product is a huge focus of what you guys are trying to do to stand out. Is that something like when I eventually get a chance to try some of this stuff, and we're recording at 11:15 in the morning, so we're gonna have to wait a little bit, not too long, but a little bit. Will it sort of stand out as something that's a different? I'm sure it'll be delicious. Will it be delicious in a different way that'll sort of stand out, you think?
Absolutely. For example, we've heard through our distributors. So last year we sold, it's not a big number, but it is a big number for somebody who's small. We sold 750 cases of our canned cocktails throughout the Hartford Athletic, the New Britain Bees. So, I mean, for some newcomer to come along, we guarantee you when you open up our canned cocktails and you put it up against anything in the market today, you are going to notice the freshness in that item, the passion of, what our guys are doing when they create this. I mean, Eric is, he's got a big thing with local. So like we use local honey. We use a local apiary from the Simsbury area. We use local grains and things like that from the Windsor area. So you're going to taste it. You're going to taste it. And the other thing, which I don't think a lot of people know, is the water in Bloomfield is some of the best water in the country.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we have a bottled water company in Bloomfield. Mm-hmm. We have a distillery, Waypoint Spirits, and we have 2 breweries.
That's right.
That is very, very unusual. And our water's unbelievable.
So you think that's really all that stuff sort of contributes to, and let's talk a little bit about that. So I know you brought sort of 3 different canned cocktails. I got a gin, lemon honey, the bee's knees, the vodka mint lemonade, and what's this one?
That's vodka our Arnold Palmer. That's our iced tea lemonade vodka.
Well, I could see why these would be really popular, because these are pretty good concepts. Gin, lemon, honey, hard to go wrong. And then you got the Arnold Palmer and the lemonade. So what drove you guys to sort of the mixed cocktail, and where are you selling these?
So we have about 350 customers throughout Connecticut. That's restaurants, that's bars, some of the sports teams. And we sell it obviously out of the Taproom. But it's funny you led with the bee's knees, because we do a lot of tastings, and people will be like, well, I'm not a gin fan. I don't like gin. Okay. So we'll give them an unmarked sample of the gin, and they're like, oh my God, this thing is awesome. What is it? That's gin. Because, again, with our R&D, one of the complaints you hear about people with gin, it's like they feel as though they're drinking a pine cone. Mm-hmm. Now, it has to have that flavor to it. But with ours, you get that on the tip of your tongue, but as it's going down your throat, you're now starting to taste citrus. So it really smooths it out. And people don't associate that
doesn't feel like gin. A gin. Yeah, well, I can imagine if you get that sort of gin, you maybe start off that little piney, but then you're going to get that honey sweet and close it out with the citrus. It's probably a pretty nice combo. Yep. Which is making me really wish it was past 12 o'clock here. So, thinking about expansion into the market, you talked about sort of your flavoring approach and how you want to stand out. How do you sort of I got to imagine you're going to places. These places already have spirits and maybe some have mixed cocktails. How do you think about the go-to-market approach to sort of get people, at Hartford Athletic, at the New Britain Bees, at these restaurants and bars, to kind of give you guys a shot? So
we are very active. We have our own sales team where we're physically going out to places and trying to introduce ourselves and generate sales. In addition to that, we have 2 very big distributors in the state of Connecticut. We have A.S. Goodman and we have Eater Brothers. So we have, with our 2 distributors, we cover the entire state of Connecticut. And, with their help, they're trying to open up new accounts for us on a daily basis. So in addition to them doing that, we have our own salespeople who are going out and introducing our product. Because, there's, again, we've really only been at this a year. So there's still plenty of people who don't know our name. And so we're hoping to change that, by being in some of the sports teams, the Hartford Athletic, the New Britain Bees. And there's some other sports teams that we're talking to at the moment as well. So we're looking ahead to 2023 as kind of we're hoping a breakout year, because we have about 8 new products coming to market, which we're super, super excited about.
Yeah, I mean, so let's talk about that, because I mean, I'm curious to hear about the product expansion and really, from a business perspective, thinking about how you're going to manage so many different SKUs and manage all the products while kind of trying to break out, right? Because you only have so much capacity to distill and shelf space. But before we do that, really quickly, this espresso flavored vodka, I'm really excited to give that a go. It looks great.
So we are super excited about this particular new product. This was launched on December 1st of 2022. So it's only really been in the market about 6 weeks, and already we've had orders for about 100 cases. So we're super excited about that SKU already.
I got a friend of mine loves having espresso martinis. And I'm thinking an espresso martini with espresso flavor vodka would be bananas.
Absolutely. So the way that vodka is, I mean, another product that's coming out in the next quarter is our vanilla vodka. And so if you take our vanilla vodka with the espresso vodka and a shot of espresso and you just mix that up over ice, I mean, it's unbelievable.
I can only imagine. Yeah. The vanilla, kind of soft vanilla, because you could overshoot that vanilla flavor, I think.
Yep. So I would do like a shot of the espresso vodka. I would do probably a half a shot of the vanilla and then a half a shot of real espresso, and just mix that up in a tumbler with ice, and
good to go.
You're good to go.
Firing away.
Yeah.
So let's talk about kind of the other products. So I think it's interesting, you're trying to expand the product base when you're thinking about all these other products. And I took a look at the sort of the catalog coming out. You shared it with me. I was looking at, apple vodka, the citrus vodka. We talked about the espresso and vanilla, coconut rum, just a lot of different flavors. And then there was a bunch of bourbons and stuff you guys are looking to launch. So when you think about driving more expansion of the existing products versus doing more R&D for new products, like how do you think about balancing those two things?
So the balance comes from what ownership wants to do, and
it's good to be king.
Yeah. And also input from our distributors. Mm-hmm. So, I'm back and forth with them a lot. Like, hey, what are some voids in the market? Are people coming to you and saying, hey, geez, I really wish there was this. So, actually with some input, we came out with our espresso. We had a coffee espresso liqueur, but that was a much lower proof and it was a much sweeter item.
Like almost syrupy kind of consistency. Yeah.
So, we went back and we made an espresso vodka, and it's really, again, taking another Connecticut product, because at Up and Smoke, we sell a local coffee, and that company has come up with the coffee for our espresso vodka. So again, it's local. They roast it right here in Connecticut. I believe it's in Wallingford or North Haven.
Got it.
And you can taste the difference when you have a mass marketed item. Mm-hmm. It's usually very sweet and there's a lot of preservatives in there, and you're not going to taste that when you taste our stuff.
No. So getting input from customers to see what people are looking for is one way you're thinking about developing new products?
Absolutely. So we were at Mohegan Sun a couple of months ago. I want to tell you it was like October, and we have an item again that's going to be coming out this month, February. It's called our honey habanero whiskey. So again, we use our local honey.
Yeah.
The guys are steeping the habaneros in our whiskey.
Oh gosh.
And I mean, it's a little sweet with a little heat.
A little sweet with some heat. I like it.
And I mean, we had the longest line at Mohegan Sun by far, because people were saying, "Oh, geez, you try that honey habanero? Did you try that honey habanero?" And so it was like going around the corner. It's funny. We even had some members of a booth of a very large national name come up.
Trying some honey habanero.
Yeah, they were like, "Wow, this stuff's pretty good." Thanks.
So how do you manage, I think one of the challenges a lot of small businesses face is this idea of like, you're trying to do too much, right? Like making all this stuff. How do you guys think about, in other words, you only have so much space, only so much time to distill. How do you figure out, do we do more of this espresso vodka that's like running off the shelves, or do we try this sort of the honey habanero? Like, how do you think about splitting up that time and sort of responding to customer needs for new products, but like sort of not using up all your capacity on the stuff that people are already buying?
So we're fortunate in that we do have the taproom. So when you go to the taproom, you are going to see our labels, but then you're going to see this white label. And the white label is for the taproom only. So that's where we do a lot of R&D. So we'll come up with something like when we came up with the espresso. It did not become a Waypoint originally. It became a Wintonberry, which is only sold at the distillery. And so we just got a lot of phenomenal feedback from the people in the taproom. So when we get that kind of interest, then it becomes a Waypoint item.
Ah, so you sort of have two brands, if you will.
Absolutely.
Wintonberry, which for people that don't know is like a part of Bloomfield. There's like a Wintonberry Ave, Wintonberry Mall, a lot of that. So go back to local. And so in the tap room, you'll kind of run something Wintonberry thing, and that gives you an opportunity to sort of demo it out. People come in, you can elicit sort of live feedback. They also compare it with food, whatever. And then you could figure out from there, does it go and become a Waypoint Spirit, which then goes into distribution?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yep.
Smart. Speaking of crawl, walk, run, right? That theory.
Well, and it's funny because we have a 5-gallon still in the back, and that's for those small runs.
Yeah.
And then we have 2 500-gallon stills.
Right.
So, obviously on the Waypoint ones, we're making the 500 gallons.
Right,
but
right.
when we're fooling around, I don't know, let's say you had a favorite, you're like, "Hey, Tony, can you try making a chocolate raspberry vodka?" Sure. So we'll
throw it in there.
We'll put it in the 5-gallon and we'll fool around and make some runs. And you might be like, that's not, until we get it perfect, and then we can make a 500-gallon run.
Oh, that's not a bad idea. Opportunity to maybe even do like corporate rums, like if someone wanted or corporate vodka, to have someone do like a, if we wanted like a Compass vodka, whatever, you could run it in the 5-gallon.
Absolutely. And we do have a barrel program. So
you do?
We do. Yeah. Yeah.
What's a barrel program?
So if you want to have like a bourbon, you want to have a whiskey, but maybe you want to have a barrel gin, maybe you want to have a barrel vodka.
You get it done.
Yeah.
Nice. So that's pretty cool. What do you see as, challenges sort of outside of sort of just the regular go to market? You mentioned, for example, that there was that new license that came out that allowed you to sort of serve food. Any other opportunities where, partnerships with other state organizations or the state in general can do things that would improve your ability to compete in the market?
Absolutely. So you mentioned taxes. Taxes was the big thing. So We have had some meetings with some of the state reps.
What's the big thing with taxes?
So
That
just
they exist, or
no, not that they exist, but just to give you an idea, right? What we're looking for is more parity in the state of Connecticut.
Okay.
Where, for example, we're different than the feds, where we go on taxes off of wine gallons, which for us, there's a lot of waste to get to what goes in the bottle. And so for example, beer here in Connecticut, right? It's charged at 23 cents a wine gallon. Spirits under 7% are charged at $2.71 a wine gallon.
oh wow,
And spirits over 7% are charged at 5.94%
dollars.
dollars a wine gallon.
And aren't most all spirits over 7%? I mean, right? That, yeah.
But here's the funny part about it with the parity, right? I mean, you could have, a lot of those IPAs, they're well over 9-10%.
Absolutely.
And they're getting charged 23 cents while we're paying $5.94. So what we're looking for right now is we're looking for some more parity. So,
Ideally by bringing yours down, not bringing theirs up.
Correct.
Yeah.
We want to bring that down because, the cost of doing business in Connecticut is higher. So some of these places, like we'll use Austin, Texas, when they're bringing stuff up, the cost of doing business is much cheaper in Austin. And so they're way ahead of us in terms of cost.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd really like that tax to go down. We don't mind the cost of living, and we're proud of being in Connecticut, but we want more parity in that.
And positive reception.
We had a lot of very positive reception. It's funny too because a lot of the people in the assembly actually didn't realize that we were on wine gallons, and they didn't realize that we were so much more expensive than like the beer.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very interesting to kind of bring that to light.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had some good feedback on it. So we'll see where it goes from there. Some of back in 2021, there was a Connecticut Brewery Tax Reduction Act, which helped out a lot for breweries, but unfortunately it didn't do anything for distilleries. For example, on a half barrel, the current price was $7.20 tax. And the new one, it goes to $6. Quarter barrel was $1.80. It's going to go to $1.50. And the wine gallon went from 24 cents to 20. So they enjoyed
some savings there.
Some savings. So we're just asking for the same thing. We'd like to enjoy that too.
Yeah, well, it's got to be super helpful for you guys, and there's probably not a huge impact on the state budget because we don't have thousands of distilleries running around.
Correct. And to kind of talk about manufacturing, we want to encourage manufacturing here in Connecticut, and to begin with, some of the reasons for why we have over 100 breweries and only have maybe 6 or 8 distilleries is because the cost to open up a brewery is somewhere between $100,000 and $300,000. Where on a distillery, it's $2 to $5 million.
Really?
So you're put at a much bigger disadvantage to begin with, and then all these other tax ramifications.
Yeah, just a little more hurdles here and there to get over it.
Yeah.
So your business background and degree is certainly popping out here. That's for sure. So just speaking about manufacturing, I know we're running out of time here, but what have you guys been finding in terms of getting people to work in the distillery? Like, are you there full time? You guys have staff? Like, how does that work?
So the 3 owners, obviously have 3 full-time occupations. That being said, we are there at least weekly. So we have a taproom manager, we have an assistant taproom manager, we have 5 employees, we have a member of the sales team. So there's probably 9 or 10 people who are working full time right now for Waypoint.
Oh, wow. It's a good number for
Yeah.
a business that's just been sort of getting off the ground from R&D and whatnot. And how do you guys do the actual distilling? Like, is that pretty, like, do you just sort of sit there? I know in brewing, for example, so I don't know a lot about distilling. In brewing, I know there's like all these brewing systems and they're like super high tech and it's got to move from this barrel to that thing and blah, blah, blah. Is that in distilling? Does it need to move as much or does it sort of stay in the still until it's ready to be bottled? How does that?
So typically what the guys will do, Eric comes up with a mash,
Yep.
right? And the mash goes into our pot stills. They heat it up to like 180 degrees. They burn everything off. And then what they do is they pump it into our fermentation tanks that are polyglycol jacketed, so they crash cool it. And then whatever the item is, it sits in there and ferments until it's ready. Then it gets pumped back into the stills, and then they proof. So I don't know if all the audience understands what proofing is, but that's just essentially adding water to it until it's where you want it. Like our vodka is 80 proof, so they put enough water in there so that it's 40% alcohol by volume.
Right. So then 60% water basically on the back end. Got it. Well, I mean, it's all pretty exciting. You got this new stuff coming out. Future seems like it looks really bright for Waypoint.
We're extremely
you seem fired
excited.
up.
Yeah, we're extremely excited.
Nice. So new sports teams coming down the line, you think?
Yes, we have a couple of new sports teams that we're talking to right now that look very promising. And what we look for is we look for good partners.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to just kind of have the wrong fit just to be out there. We look for people who want us. And so we've the Hartford Athletic has been awesome. New Britain Bees have been awesome. And these two new facilities, they seem to be the same sort of, hey, what can we do to help you? Which, we're all in here together working. So, we want to make Connecticut great.
There we go, man. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Absolutely.
That's how it goes. Awesome, Tony. Listen, been really great talking to you. I'm going to flip us over to some rapid fire round of questions to round this thing out, man.
Great.
You ready?
Awesome.
All right, here. Well, speaking of sports, man, Red Sox or Yankees?
Yankees.
Oh, this conversation was going so well, Tony. Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Jamaican gourmet.
There we go. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Sports car or SUV?
Pickup truck.
There you go. When you want to take some time off, you more staycation guy or exotic destination?
With the kids, it's more staycation, but when it's just the wife and I, we like to go to the beach.
There you go. Exotic.
Exotic. Yeah.
Nice. Do you have a favorite business book?
Ooh, a favorite business book. No, I'm too busy.
Too busy to read?
Too
busy doing to read. Yeah. Fair enough. What's something, Tony, that you learned early in your life or early in your career that you think's helped propel you to all the success that you've had?
Work ethic.
Work ethic. What's something that you learned later in your life or later in your career that if you could go back and tell young Tony, and if young Tony would listen to you, you think it had a real positive impact on his life?
Patience.
Patience. Elaborate?
Well, young Tony would just react very quickly and sometimes not the right way. Where older Tony, it's kind of listen, pay attention to what's going around, and then act.
I like it, man. Patience and work ethic. Hard to go wrong with those two things behind your back. Tony, it's been awesome having you on. Really appreciate you spending the time. Appreciate all the samples. Wish you guys the best of luck, and I'll definitely be drinking a vodka mint lemonade at my next athletic game.
Well, great. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it and letting me talk about Waypoint to your listeners out there.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by CompassMSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.